Okay, we're ready to make our first connection. You can see I've desoldered it now, and I'm going to apply the first connection over here. Now you can put some short circuit protection on here. You can put a little bit of heat shrink in here over the ends of the terminals, but I've never had one short so far. I mean, maybe I'll do it on the negative just to show you how it's done if you're double safe. So there we go, there's that nice neat wirelet that's going to feed around here. So if we bring this a little closer to the camera, you can see your first connection, and we're using blue this time because it's a feed from the switch. And the next one we can do is we can do the black wire. Okay, so I'm getting ready to do the negative connection now, and then this goes across like that. And I've got a little piece of heat shrink tubing already attached here. I just slid it over the loose end of the wire. You mustn't forget to slide your heat shrink on before you make your joint, because obviously once you've made your joint you can't get to it. So quickly make the joint here. And then slide the heat shrink into place. So there you go, that's how your motor wiring should look. Bring that to the camera. So this is just a quick and lazy way of doing it without having to do too many joints. So less joints are better, really, lowering your resistance. So there you have your negative bias, and that goes back to your battery tray, and then this one goes back to your trigger switch. Okay, so we're just getting ready to pop this back in to give you an idea of where it's going to go back in the shell, and you can refit your rubber tops. So you've got your little PVC things. There we go. So we've refitted those, and then you can see that we're running the wiring through the stop wiring run, and then back through here, and then we'll tuck it back, and we'll make the negative connection at this end, and then we'll make the feed connection down here in the microswitch last, and the next one we're going to do after that is to run our positive wire from here back down to here, because this one goes at the top. The blue one generally is your top connection. Okay, so you can see I've popped the flywheel cage back in here, and I've also put in the barrel and the lug and the little faux barrel in there, and I'm just going to put 2 screws on the motors in case we've made any mistakes. So I'll just put 2 there like that, hold it all in place. So the flywheel cage is nicely secured. So we're now ready to run our piece of red wire, which is not very long. I'm just going to go from this feed down to here to the microswitch. Now remove the switch just to make life a little bit easier. You can see here's the standard microswitch. Now if you are doing a long running blade build, then I would suggest replacing this with something juicier. Now this blaster's mostly going to run on 2S, so I don't think I'm going to get the massive spikes that wreck these, and I've not had one die yet, but if you're definitely going to use blades, then do replace that, and there's lots of good guides for that on the web. Turek does a really good one on how to replace those. There you go. So we put a bit of heat shrink on there. Now you only need 1 bit of heat shrink really to stop a short, but I like to put it on both just because it helps support the soldered connection a little bit. So there you have the finished connection with the heat shrink on. I can take off this other piece of wire now. That little baby fits in there. We can then make our blue connection. Okay, so I'm ready to solder again, and you can see just here that I've put a little bit more heat shrink tubing on there just because I can. And then I'm going to solder that up like that. Make the connection. Hopefully you'll be able to see me make this connection. Right, so there we have the next 2 connections. We have the connections to the microswitch. Now we can just pop the microswitch back into the fire control group and the trigger. So we can just go down here, take the cap off. You notice that I took that microswitch out beforehand to make it easier. So that little sucker just goes in that way, like so. So there it is, just goes in here. And we're good to go now with running the wiring, so we can put the cover back on. So you can see the finished rev trigger, And we've got two nice neat connections. We have a blue going back to the motor cage, which is your feed wire, and then you have your power line, which is going up here to the battery tray. So now we are ready to make our final connection to the battery tray. Red one. This one can be a bit awkward sometimes. Obviously it stands to reason, whilst you're soldering, don't work with any kind of power supply in the battery tray, okay, because that would be really stupid. There you have your wiring run, okay, so you've moved your blue, look, your blue and your red wire, and they've all got nicely tucked up out the way. Be careful at this point here, because you can see that this wire is really close to where you're going to solder, so just be aware that that's there. Now if you're adding LEDs in this area, if you're putting in the LED mod, you're going to want an extra one from here and here, just little feeds. Just two little wires into the switch, one and out, and one direct to the LEDs. But that's up to you to work out. This is just a guide for how to wire it to make it fire. Okay, we're ready to make our final connection. I'm going to make the negative connection now to put it down so I can work. If you've done everything right, all of your wires should be nice and out the way of the firing mechanism. Now what you don't want with your wiring looms, you don't want these wires to come up above this in any way. If you have any loops in here, then by all means stick them down. Right where the tip of my finger is, just put a bit of hot glue in there, or a sticky pad or something to hold your wiring loom out the way. The beauty of this silicon coated wire is it's extremely flexible and you can move it lots of different places. Now, do not use lithium polymer or lithium-ion packs of any kind for testing. I can't say that clearly enough. Use rubbish alkaline batteries for testing. Okay, if you're running packs, it's worth making a little 9-volt PP9, the little tiny square battery, with a XT60 or with a Trax or a Tamiya mini connector, whichever is your, or Dean's, whichever is your pack of choice. Just have a rubbish alkaline adapter to allow you to plug a PP9 in, because they're really saggy and they don't deliver a lot of amps, because then if you've made a mistake you don't set fire to anything and you don't cook yourself. So be aware, just remember, only alkalines for testing, okay? Nothing more powerful than that. Remember that a really good LiPo pack can deliver huge ampage and it's capable of a 30C burst, which is more than enough to kill you. So treat them with respect. Okay, so I've put some batteries in and I'm ready to test. Now if we've got this round the right way, my little test dart here, it should fly straight and true from the flywheels. I'm just going to manually feed it in. Bear in mind you don't want that aiming at anywhere painful while you actually test, and keep your fingers well clear of the flywheel. So see if I can capture this moment, as hopefully it goes the right way. There we go, getting a nice clean rev sound. There you go, that fired really easily, and that went the right way. Now, if you're fitting 180 motors, I recommend that you go and look at Turuk's Stryfe build guide, because he's done a couple of really good ones, and especially on how to fit 180s. And now, if your dart does not go straight in or pushes towards you, then you've got these two round the wrong way. So change them at the flywheel end, okay? There's no need to change them at the battery end, because it just messes everything up. So just change them at the flywheel end, swap them over, and you might have to mess about with that and then it'll go. If you're doing 180s and you get no dart movement at all, then you've ended up having them counter-rotating, and you'll need to rewire again, or take the motors out, turn them round. Take one out, switch it through 180 degrees, put it back in. So that should now be ready to put back together, and we'll very quickly put it back together. I'm going to have to put a little bit of hot glue in here because these big wires aren't going to cover up this time, and I'm just going to glue them into place with the hot glue in a minute, and then I'll put the whole thing back together. I'll show you a shot of it complete. Okay, so here we have the finished item, and I think you'll agree that that's actually pretty tasty now. That's a really nice simplified circuit. You can see that I've put back in the microswitch up here, partly in this instance so I don't lose it, because this is coming apart again in the next couple of weeks. So I've left that in, and I'll reuse that for my LED mod. And then I haven't put the hot glue in here yet because I've got to take it all out again, so I'll do that when I've finished. Now if we put those two together, there, you can see the difference in size between those wires, and you can see what a massive choke point that is going to be. So for an analogy, for you hot rodders out there, right, imagine taking a 440 cubic inch big block V8 and then trying to run it on a lawnmower carburetor, just to give you an idea of the kind of choky you're getting at some of that in some ways, where these guys are trying to draw plenty of juice from your nice tasty battery pack that you'll be running, or your improved battery pack, and to get from the motor, from the battery to the motor, they have to go through this stuff. Okay, so there's the kind of idiot's physics behind this. I don't care about resistance and all of that stuff. I can't measure it. All I know is more juice flows through bigger wire. Okay, I'm a kind of simple guy. That's the way you've got to look at it. And this is a slight hammer to crack a nut in this case with this really, really big wire, but that's the best way. And there's a reason.